Ahsoka Season 1 just wrapped up with Episode 8, titled The Jedi, the Witch, and the Warlord. Totally not to be confused with The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, by the way. So, in the second-to-last episode, Dreams and Madness, Thrawn was up to his cunning tricks to make sure Ahsoka stayed out of his hair while he got ready for his grand exit strategy. Episode 8 picks up right from there, and Thrawn is basically throwing a tantrum because Jedi, well, one former Jedi and her 2 Jedi-in-training pals are about to mess up his plans once more. Now, in the midst of all this impending chaos, we've got the Great Sisters welcoming Morgan Elsbeth into their mysterious club. They give her a makeover to make her look just like them and hand her the Blade of Talzin. It's a bit of a surprise because Morgan didn't have much to do this season besides using one-word sentences and explaining stuff. But hold on to your lightsabers because it looks like Dave Filoni might be steering her character towards something more interesting. But of course, in the world of Ahsoka, things are rarely as straightforward as they seem. All that happens in the finale. So, in the latest Ahsoka episode, Ezra decides he's had enough of his old lightsaber and wants to make a shiny new one for himself. But Hu Yang, the lightsaber-building guru, isn't exactly thrilled with Ezra's slapdash approach to craftsmanship. He even drops a bombshell by revealing that he taught Kanan Jarrus, the former Jedi, how to build a lightsaber back in his youngling days. To make it more dramatic, he hands over a piece of equipment he once gave to Kanan. Talk about some lightsaber nostalgia. Now, as Ezra contemplates his lightsaber upgrade, Sabine goes for a little jog and conveniently bumps into Ahsoka. They've got a lot of catching up to do, considering they've been overdue for a heart-to-heart about, well, everything. Ahsoka gets all reminiscent about her time with Anakin Skywalker, pledging to stand by Sabine's side no matter what's lurking in their ominous future. But before Ezra can crash their touching moment, a pair of TIE fighters swoop in and give Ahsoka's ship a real makeover with some laser blasts. Sabine takes matters into her own hands, boosting the ship and using it as a battering ram to deal with those pesky TIE fighters. The downside? She ends up crashing the ship, further delaying their already tricky plans. With their ship now resembling space junk, Ahsoka, Ezra, and Sabine decide to make a daring move and hop on a couple of howlers, heading straight for Thrawn's front door. Thrawn's not in the mood for negotiations, especially not with Anakin Skywalker's former apprentice. So he tries to rain down destruction on them. But hey, lightsabers are a Jedi's best friend, right? When his airstrikes flop, Thrawn sends in his night troopers, with a little spooky assist from the Great Sisters who control these undead soldiers. It's a real zombie showdown. The trio battles their way up the tower, but they run into Morgan, who's determined to be the ultimate party pooper. Ahsoka, being the Jedi she is, urges Ezra and Sabine to go deal with Thrawn while she handles Morgan. And Morgan's got some new Dathomirian tricks up her sleeve, making her a real handful for Ahsoka. Meanwhile, Ezra and Sabine have their hands full with a pair of super-strong undead troopers. Sabine pulls off a move right out of The Last Jedi and takes out one of them to save Ezra from becoming zombie chow. As Thrawn's ship inches away from the tower, Sabine and Ezra hatch a plan. They're going to use the Force to leap across a massive gap between them and the Chimera, Thrawn's ship. Ezra takes the leap of faith first, trusting Sabine to give him that extra Force push. But just when it looks like they're about to pull off this daring move, Ahsoka shows up with a horde of undead night troopers and Morgan Elsbeth on her tail. In a surprise twist, Sabine decides to stay behind and help Ahsoka, showing she's not just in it for Ezra. Together, Ahsoka and Sabine take down the night troopers and, shockingly, Morgan Elsbeth too. You'd think Morgan, introduced in The Mandalorian, was set up as a big bad for Ahsoka, but her character arc turned out to be rather undercooked. Her motives were murky, her backstory was a mystery, and her motivations were a head-scratcher, leading to a bit of an anticlimactic demise. Seems like there was a missed opportunity here for a more engaging storyline. If Ahsoka Season 2 or the upcoming movie ventures into Dathomir and more Night Sisters, let's hope they steer clear of those narrative pitfalls. All the characters switch places, so, after Sabine decides to stay behind and help Ahsoka in the big showdown, Ezra ends up in a bit of déjà vu. He's left in a situation similar to the one that landed him on Paradia in the first place, albeit briefly. This time, it's Ahsoka and Sabine who get stranded on a desolate planet after Thrawn pulls some sneaky moves to make sure they can't follow him back to their galaxy. Feeling pretty defeated, Ahsoka and Sabine head back to a Noti village. Sabine's all worried, thinking she made the wrong call, especially since Thrawn slipped away and Ezra seems stuck aboard Thrawn's ship. But Ahsoka's the voice of reason here. She reassures Sabine that Ezra made it home safe and sound. back where he belongs. Though we don't get to see Ezra's grand escape on screen, Ahsoka treats fans to a long-awaited reunion between Ezra and Hera aboard a Republic ship. It turns out Ezra used his wits to swipe a ship and a night trooper suit, allowing him to slip off the Chimera undetected. But here's where it gets a bit disappointing. The reunion between Ezra and Hera falls flat, with no heartwarming hug or anything, even though Ezra was like Hera's adopted son long before Jason came along. It's a head-scratcher. And Ahsoka's chat with Sabine on Paradea doesn't help clear things up. She says they're exactly where they need to be, even though they're not back with the people who love and care for them. This vague dialogue is probably meant to tease where the story's headed, but Dave Filoni kept the plot and character motives so tightly under wraps that it's a guessing game for us. Maybe Ahsoka and Sabine are meant to reunite with Shin Hati and Baylan Skoll on their own personal quests, although those seem pretty hazy at best. Shin is last seen mingling with the red-clad scavengers, and Baylan's doing some rock climbing on grand statues. But hey, at least Ahsoka whipped out the Force ghost of Anakin Skywalker one more time, just like in the 2004 DVD edition of Return of the Jedi. Is the white bird that Ahsoka sees supposed to be Morai? That white bird we catch a glimpse of at the end of Part 8, The Jedi, the Witch, and the Warlord, is almost certainly Morai, the female convor who made her debut in Rebels. Now, Morai is like Ahsoka's feathered guardian angel, showing up at some pretty pivotal moments in her life. You might remember Morai flying above Darth Vader when he's checking out the wreckage of the Tribunal and stumbles upon Ahsoka's Clone Wars-era lightsaber. Yep, that was a Morai cameo. She also made appearances to both Vader and Ahsoka on Malachor and played a part in guiding Ezra Bridger to find Ahsoka in the world between worlds. Oh, and if you look closely at a mural depicting the Force wielders of Mortis, you'll spot Morai chilling on the shoulder of the daughter. So, Morai is kind of like the ultimate Ahsoka symbol, showing up in all the right places in her story. What Morai means for the story. Dave Filoni, the mastermind behind all things Star Wars, leaves Morai's connection to the daughter kind of fuzzy on purpose. Maybe Morai's a reincarnation of the daughter, or maybe she's just a beloved pet. It's one of those mysteries that keeps us guessing. But here's the juicy part. Morai is also tied to Ahsoka, thanks to the daughter. When the daughter was on her last legs, she kind of passed on her Force mojo to Ahsoka, bringing her back from the dead after the son did some bad stuff. So, Morai showing up at the end of Ahsoka isn't really a shocker. It's like a little nod to how Ahsoka has found peace with herself and her late master, Anakin, and how she's brought Ezra Bridger back into the Star Wars galaxy. It's all very symbolic and cool. Ahsoka, compared to other Star Wars shows now, with Disney Plus blowing up the Star Wars universe with loads of live-action and animated series, Ahsoka had a lot to live up to. But here's the thing, it kind of felt like it was playing it safe, just like The Mandalorian, which had its fair share of Ahsoka action in Season 2. It didn't really try to break new ground or carve out its own identity. And let's talk about the naming convention. It's got something in common with The Mandalorian, which shifted away from being all about one Mandalorian in its third season. Now, some fans might dig those aimless, all-over-the-place storylines and characters that feel like action figures with no personality. But Ahsoka ends up feeling like it's stuck in the shadows of Obi-Wan Kenobi and Andor. Those shows knew exactly what they wanted to do with their lead characters and the awesome crews around them. Sure, Ahsoka had its moments of excitement, but they often got sandwiched between too much nostalgia and a lack of understanding about what made Rebels and the Clone Wars tick. Thankfully, the cast and directors, including Rick Famuyiwa in Episode 8, saved the day with their acting chops and direction skills, breathing some life into those weak scripts. Looking ahead, it'd be great if future seasons of Ahsoka bring in a more diverse range of voices in the writer's room, not just behind the camera. We could use a bit more creative juice flowing through the veins of the show. Having no end credits scene made the final scene even better. So there wasn't a post-credits scene in Ahsoka, and you know what? That's a good thing. It lets the weight of Anakin's return as a Force ghost really hit home. We've seen him in various forms before, like holoform and a funky Force ghost vision mix in the World Between Worlds. But this time, it's more like the Anakin we saw at the end of Return of the Jedi. Now, whether he'll make a comeback in a potential Ahsoka Season 2, we'll have to wait and see. But the absence of an end credits scene actually helps the final scene pack a punch. It's a poignant moment, and it ties into the whole theme of masters and apprentices that's been a big deal throughout the show. Adding an after-credits scene could have shifted the focus too much onto the future, taking away from this heartfelt moment. And honestly, it's not like we needed more setup or excitement for what's coming next, considering all the groundwork Ahsoka's already laid for Season 2 and that Mandalorian movie. Having Ahsoka and Anakin as the very last thing in the story just feels right. So much of this season has been about Ahsoka growing as a master and coming to terms with the fact that what happened to her own master, Anakin, wasn't her fault. She gets that Anakin always had her back, and now she's doing the same for Sabine. It's a way of moving forward from Anakin, and that's why that final scene between them is so emotional. Anakin can be proud of his apprentice as she completes her final lesson. That brings us to the end of today's video. What did you think of the final episode? Let us know in the comments below. And if you haven't already, then please like and subscribe. We'll see you in the next one.